So I'm delighted to see all of you. I'm honored to be in the presence of such luminosity. Um, you guys are great. Become aware of that. Take a deep breath and just feel the magnificence of your very being. Okay, so today's talk is about active participation. As you may have guessed by, I don't know, the website, Joe's Prayer, the way we go about things here is say it a couple of different times just so it catches on. Um, and I'm going to dispense with some stuff early on because it may not be what you think this is going to be about. So, active participation on a physical level in the world is a good thing if it's a good thing, right? So, in New Thought, we have a lot of tendency to pray for the good that is God to show up in our lives, whether it be love or harmony, peace, abundance, whatever good that we want to experience. And often we can contradict that with our actions. So you can't really pray for love and be hateful in all of its various forms, whether that's outright rage or mild irritation. These are all forms of hate. So praying for love and expressing hate will cancel itself out and leave us sitting around wondering, how come I'm not experiencing the love that I keep praying for? Right? Praying for peace and acting in violence will also cancel itself out. Whether it's the violence of verbal abuse, highways come to mind easily, um, or actually being driven to the red rage that can produce physical violence. That can be the state that we're in, but if you are praying for peace, that ain't going to be what you get. So, in order to really get to a place where we can be the things that we are praying for, I've got some suggestions. Ernest Holmes famously said that when asked, how long shall we pray for something? And his answer was, until it demonstrates. And by that, what he meant was until that is the reality. So the active participation that we can begin with is that participation of our prayer and then the alignment of all of the rest of our lives with that prayer. So that assumes, and so I'm going to assume here, and I know what that means, and so do you. I'm going to assume that we all have a clear idea of what it is that we are praying for. Because you can pray for general things and you will receive general things. They just may not be what you actually desire. So let's assuming that we've got a clear idea of what we want to experience, whether that be greater depth of spiritual awareness, a greater level of prosperity in our lives, more deep and meaningful relationships, a healthier expression of physicality in our own being. The first objective there, of course, is not to get the specific about it unless you can really bring yourself to believe in the good that is behind it, but to look for the general about it of how would I feel if this were the case? It's a good place to start a prayer because it may not show up the way that you think it might show up specifically. You can pray for specific things. And by the time, as Bill has often said to me, and we've discussed at length, by the time you're able to manifest the specific, let's call it the pink Cadillac, that you've been dreaming of all of your life, you're probably not going to want the pink Cadillac anymore because you will have realized that it's just a symbol of an outward state of being, of feeling prosperous and powerful and whatever other good emotions that we want to be feeling about ourselves that pink Cadillac represents. So we've done our prayer. We've come to believe that the prayer is the truth of our being. This is the real key to effective, affirmative, practical prayer. Is when we believe that it is so, it is so. And how do we know? Because that's the way it is. It's that simple. It has manifest as the truth in our life by our recognition of the good already being present, because it must be present in the allness of God for us to experience it. So we have, as Ginger said, opened ourselves to the luminous light of the good of God in our lives that's already and always present. Must be. There's no part that God is not. So we have to bring our awareness, our own awareness, and all of the objections that our mind can bring to that into the fore to change our belief. Because the belief is a flexible thing. We have the ability to choose the belief that we want to focus all of our energy on and place ourselves into. It can be positive, which is a good thing. I definitely recommend that. Or it can be negative because sometimes we get distracted. So the real truth behind everything is that we are individualizations of a divine goodness that is ever present everywhere, and that we are here to experience the highest level of that goodness that is possible within this form of life that we experience on this planet. That's the truth behind everything. God's not in opposition to itself. It works for us, through us, and as us to manifest, and we use a couple of those terms, to bring about the goodness that we believe is somehow being held from us by opening up to the awareness that it is not being held from us. It is awaiting our recognition of it. So, in the day-to-day dust of the road, as they say, or the grit of the journey, or maybe that's reversed. Take your pick. It's very easy to get distracted from the absolute truth by the activities that we see around us, the perceptions that we have of the state of things that are other than our awareness or in our immediate presence, the assumptions that we make about how things are, and the activity that we can begin with is to remember that when those other ideas that are not in alignment with the good that we desire appear in our mind, when they appear, not if they appear, because they do appear, because this is a human experience. My personal belief is that it is our journey, our job, our expression of life to move ourselves back to the awareness of truth in all moments, at which point we will ascend, be transcendent, and can choose to be bodhisattva or not. Up to you. Your journey, not mine. In that case, as we move away from that into the activity of the day, let's say we get up in the morning and we do our morning prayer, and our morning prayer is for peace and harmony, love and abundance. It's kind of a round robin morning prayer. And we get out of bed and we go about our business and we get ready. And if we go to work, we go to work and we get on the road and that guy cuts us off. And the first thing we do is bless you. This is not necessarily staying in alignment with the prayer that we started the morning with. So we may need to do some adjustment. Again, going back to Holmes is how often do we pray until it shows up? So I wouldn't recommend that if you're on the road, closing your eyes and doing a full spiritual mind treatment, affirmative prayer, and practical use of your time, because keeping your eyes open on the road is generally a good idea, or somebody else will need to pray for you. Once we get there, we can do a quick affirmation. I'm at peace. I am one with the person who just cut me off, because they are part of what I am. And I am a part of God, and God is all of this. And we could say that over and over and over and over in our minds until we clear ourselves of the little bit of irritation, fear, or whatever else activated the negativity, to clear our minds so that by the time we arrive where we're going, we can again be at peace. I mean, this whole job of clearing our consciousness would be effortless and simple if, in fact, we all lived in caves by ourselves on a mountaintop and spent nothing but the time that we have of our lives contemplating the good of God. However, most of us have the opportunity to interact with other people, sometimes joyously, sometimes with a little bit of challenge. That might be right after you get out of your car to go into the office or wherever it is that you're going to do work, or interact with your loved one, or whatever your condition may be. And it is well to remind yourself that you started the morning by praying for peace, love, harmony, and prosperity. As soon as that happens. And so we can reorient ourselves into a better frame of mind, a higher consciousness, and a higher awareness. That's how we redirect when those things are going on through the day. Now, what I have found to be a successful methodology for integrating prayer into our activity is the simple prayer of guide me to the next correct thing, whether it be a word or an action or an activity. And within that, to express ourselves in that manner, have the courage, know that this is God talking, and that if it is loving, kind, need to be said by you or done by you, and of benefit to everybody involved, then go right ahead and do so. Sometimes that takes courage and a bit of discernment. And in doing that, we have actively put ourselves as an expression of God into whatever that situation is. Not that the whole situation isn't God in the first place, but sometimes they arise so that we can recognize that within ourselves, that we still have some sense of separation from everyone or everything else. Patently not true. If nothing else, you are exchanging molecules of air. So the next step in deepening the awareness, the consciousness of the good that we wish to receive, is to go back and do the prayer again. Now, a practical prayer is a unit in and of itself. It is complete and whole at the moment that you release it into the law in the true belief that it is already so. And sometimes we need to do that frequently to remove our own disbelief that this is what is so. And you can always tell in a practical prayer when you've got it because you know that you know. There's that feeling that despite whatever condition you may be experiencing, it has been released into the good of God, and that you know that this good is yours now. Now, there have been people throughout history who have been able to do this in a single step. Jesus was one of those, guy you might have heard of. He said, get up your bed, get up and walk. And it happened because he didn't have any separation going on in his consciousness that there was anything but the good of God in the present current situation that he was encountering, and he was able to do that. There are people who still have that ability, but many of us don't yet, or as I like to say, until now, have the ability to immediately recognize the truth of a situation. And we must use a practical prayer to reorient our thinking and the activity of our lives to be in alignment with the good that we know is actually back there. Because we can know it in our head, but if it hasn't made the journey to our heart, it is just floating around in our head. That this may be possible for me at some time, but what we need to be in the expression of love, in the expression of God as us, is we need to be in the state of knowing the truth of our unity with all that is, and therefore our inheritance of all of the good that is. And as that's why we do the prayer, is to not to change the world around us, but to change our thinking so that the world around us begins to align with our thinking. That is the highest activity that we can do as individualized expression of a divine idea, is to reorient our thinking towards the divine love that is the natural state of being for each of us when we allow it. I mean, we're the ones who need to be convinced. In any given situation, we're the ones who need to be convinced. So the prayer is for us. Now, if you're having a little difficulty, I highly recommend working with a minister or practitioner to remove the block that you have to believe that some good that is natural for you is not yet yours. As Bill likes to often call it, rent a consciousness. It's a good thing to do because a practitioner has spent quite a bit of time, years in fact, clearing their consciousness of from any misapprehension they may have about who and what you are. And if they have any, they can turn around and clear their consciousness of that misinformation to understand that that's an illusion and to understand that there's no reason this truth can't be expressed for you in this moment. So there's an activity we could do. Having a challenge, call a practitioner. It's a great way to start the path. The only other thing that I want to say about this activity of prayer and participating in it is that no one on this planet can tell you what you want. No one has an osmosis of understanding what it is your heart's desire is. Each of us has both the freedom and the responsibility to choose that heart's desire and express it in the world. Sometimes the choices are easy, sometimes not so much. Sometimes they require us to actually do things that go along and in alignment with that idea. And there's where the worldly act of participation comes in. So having discerned what it is our specific desire is to be in the world, then perhaps the next step, as I often find it, and I don't put this on anybody, it's just for me, is that my next prayer is for the courage to express that in the world fearlessly. Because if it is loving and kind and an expression of the divine power back of all things, then it is right to do for me. As it is for each one of us when we find that thing that draws us into something that is new, unfamiliar, and potentially frightening. But being drawn to it is the call to do something wonderful, something that is a divine expression. And the courage is there. When we get called to these things, the courage unfolds effortlessly and easily. And so I leave you with this. Well, I'm not leaving, actually. I'm just ending this talk. We are each an individualized expression of an infinite power and source with all of the resources, all of the power, and all of the creativity required to bring it about in this manifestation of physical form, whether it be our body or the world at large. If you wish to see love, be love. If you wish to see peace, be peaceful. If you wish to be prosperous, be prosperous. And so it is. Namaste.